Good evening. And I want to say thank you to everyone who has joined us tonight. I'm so glad to be here on this evening. If you watched my videotape, you know that I am Tracy Ward, the women's empowerment expert, and I posted a video and it was titled Try Again. Now, if you've been around or with me at for any length of time, you know that I tried to have this hangout last Tuesday, and it didn't work. There were some things I didn't know. There were some things I didn't do. And my gracious guest so kindly agreed to be here again with me today. And the title of that hangout, of that video, was just Try Again. You know, there's going to be things that you try to do and they just don't work out the first time. But I was encouraging you to try again. So I'm here, Dr. Okoro's here, and we're going to make this happen today. So thank you again for joining me. I'd like you to do something for me. Go to the I Am Enough group page. And I'd like you to post in that feed right now, we are live. My guest is here, and she's an amazing woman, and I can't wait for her to share her information with you tonight. You know, just a little bit of background on I Am Enough. I bring you these hangouts because I want to talk about real issues that are happening to real people, and I want to bring real solutions. So that's why I started the I Am Enough hangouts, because there was so long that I didn't feel like I was enough. I didn't know that I was enough. And so now that I've gone through my mental transformation, when I look around, I see women that were just like me. And so it's my job now. I've made it it's my passion to bring you live guests that can help us through the rough moments and the rough times and share their professional insight with you. So I'm not going to labor. I'm actually going to go ahead and introduce my special guest here that's with me. And I'm going to read part of her bio. So you're going to see me reading. Dr. Blessing Okoro Realis is a licensed psychotherapist, certified trauma specialist, and wellness coach, and has been in practice for about 15 years. She has extensive training and experience in treating various psychological disorders, relational issues, and other life and wellness concerns for her diverse group of clients, using dynamic, holistic, rational, strength-based, and practical evidence-based methods. She also works with people to find resolutions for life challenges that have been affecting them emotionally at work, relationships. Just, my goodness, this bio. Now, you know, I'm just gonna stop right there. How many of us out here right now that are watching know that we've had issues that have affected these areas in our lives? Dr. Okoro Realis is a dynamic speaker and teacher and enjoys mentoring others, especially in the mental health and wellness field. She has a passion for the study, training, and research that focus on brain, mind, body connections and neuropsychology, especially in dealing with trauma, as she works to incorporate these areas in her practice. Dr. Okoro Realis is the founder of and CEO of Orb Care. Is that right, Dr.?
Yes, it is.
Okay, Orb Care Health and Wellness, an organization that focuses on using unique and personalized solutions to help people achieve better overall health and well-being. She is also a Sandan third-degree black belt of, okay, you got to help me with that word, Shotokan?
Shotokan karate.
All right, karate. Yeah. And practices mixed martial arts. She enjoys teaching karate and self-defense programs, especially for women, children, and families. According to Dr. Blessing, I strongly believe that seeking the balance between our physical, mental, and spiritual health is very important. I'm going to tell you some more about that later too. Thus, I have found it very beneficial to incorporate these different aspects in my work. Dr. Okoro led a team of trained and caring staff, and they are committed to excellence, evidence-based quality treatment, client-centered care, and building awareness in the community. Ladies and gentlemen, if you don't know by just that, reading that bio, you know that you're in for a treat tonight. I want you to go into the feed right now and say, Dr. Okoro is live. I love it. How are you doing, doctor?
I'm doing well, and you?
Good. So very good to see you today.
Thank you. Same here. Same here.
Wonderful. Well, I want to jump right in because I am just so very excited about you being here and the information that we're going to be sharing today. And I titled this Hangout today, Taking Care of You. The topic that Dr. Okoro is going to really center in on, I'm going to let her tell you a little bit more about it, but we're going to talk about the effects of stress. Now, I know that you that are out there watching, that's not a foreign word. We all know what stress is, and oftentimes we really don't understand the importance of eliminating as much stress out of our lives as we can. So the doctor is going to explain to us, we're going to talk about some things, and we're really going to get down to some of our real issues. So I'm going to go ahead and shoot with my first questions for Dr. Okoro. Is there anything you want to say right now, just before we get started with the questions?
I'm just very excited to be here with you today. I know that we've talked a few times in the past, and I'm very excited about the work that you do, especially in empowering and giving back to the people the strength that is already within. So I'm just very excited to be here to be part of this.
Absolutely. And I'm so very excited to have you here. I just fell in love with you just from the few conversations that we've had. And I was so glad that we were put in contact with one another, because I just believe that, you know, this won't be your first one. I just believe the information that you're going to bring today is just so very important. And I truly believe in the work that you do. So our first question is, let's just talk a little bit about stress, and maybe talk a little bit about the top three causes of stress in our life, doctor.
Well, usually when I ask people what they think stress is, I get a lot of answers in terms of our finances, our relationships, our family, traffic, all those kinds of things. The truth is that's actually not stress. I basically usually tell people that is life. Those are life events that happen to us. But stress in itself tends to be the response that we have to those events, how we are reacting to that, how they are affecting us, because as you can tell, for everybody is different in the way, and different levels, and also just the way that it happens to them. For some people, they find some of those life events to be beneficial to them, to be good, and for some people it is stressful. So when we look at what the top causes of stress are, it's not actually what is on the outside, it is what is happening with us. So when I look at those three areas, I tend to look at, first and foremost, what is going on with us at that moment when we're getting involved in this life event, but also how we are responding to that. What are the resources that we have? How ready are we in terms of how we handle those life events? So usually stress tends to be what we call the mismatch between the demands of life, between what is it that is in our own personal lives that we're dealing with, and the resources that we have or we are putting together to be able to deal with those life events. So again, like I said, it's definitely the way that we are aware of how our body, our mind, our spirit, our, just everything about us is responding to those life events. That's first and foremost, how we are accepting it, how we are coping with it. And then what behaviors do we do to be able to tackle those life demands. So I'll pretty much, I don't know if there were 3 or 4 of them that I just said, but that's kind of in general the areas that, in terms of what is going on with us, that then produces or becomes what we call stress in our lives.
That is great, doctor. And I'm so glad that you went back and kind of gave the definition of what stress is, because we do tend to talk about, when we're talking about stress, we talk about the whatever that is at the moment that we identify, when really it's what's happening on the inside.
Yes.
It's the effect, and it's how we're reacting to the thing that is happening, and once we understand that this is all an experience that we're having. So I love that you just went back and you just talked about how it's not traffic. It's not life events. It's what's going on with us.
Definitely. And a lot of times these are some of these things, life events are things that we may not be able to control. So again, how we are responding to that plays a lot of part in terms of basically how we are stressed about those events.
Yes, I love that. I love that, just that clarification. So as we visit, now that we know what stress truly is, it's truly our reaction to whatever the experience is that we're having or that we're going through, whether we can control it or not. What are some of the things and some of the more common mistakes that you see people make when they're trying to cope or deal with stress? And I don't want to say handling stress, because we don't handle stress well a lot of the times. If we're handling it, then it's okay. But what are some of the common mistakes you see people make when they're trying to deal with stress?
There are so many different ways that people handle stress, and that definitely plays a part in terms of some of the mistakes. But one of the areas that I tend to see a lot in terms of how people handle stress is, first and foremost, not being able to really identify the things that are very stressful to us. So with everything that is happening in our lives, not being able to really pay attention to how we are responding to those things, how we are reacting to them, and how it's affecting us physically, emotionally, behaviorally, and otherwise. And this is, again, one of the first areas I work with people on. You have to go back and tune into yourself and be able to identify, because, again, not everything is stressful. And in fact, when I sit down and go over it with people, sometimes they realize the things that they worry so much about, or the things that they allow to be stressful for them, actually are not, but because they are not used to really paying attention to how they respond to things, then somehow it gets generalized. Maybe sometimes something else might have been stressful to them, but then because, again, they don't realize how much their reactions, the effects it have on them are, and they haven't tuned into themselves to be able to do that, then they generalize that to everything else. And a lot of times we do it unconsciously. I always say it's like a bee, getting stung by a bee, and then everything that flies around you react to that, even though they are not bees. So again, first and foremost, being able to really recognize what are those things that are around us, that we are part of, what is within our lives, the life events that we're going through, and definitely how those are affecting us, how we're responding to that, because then we'll be able to pretty much figure out how things become stressful for us. So I think that's the very first part of it. The second part of it also, again, is being able, and that kind of goes in also with the fact that we tune into ourselves, being able to really recognize not only what the demands are in our lives, but also what are the resources that we have. Because then when we're able to really pay attention and know what resources we have, then we can really utilize those. Again, that's where strengths come in. And the ones we don't have, we can be able to get what we need to fill in that. And then finally, there's one thing in my field that we call perceived stress. And I think this happens a lot with most of us, where when things haven't even happened, we're already anticipating that. next month, I'm already thinking about, a lot of things about next month. Unfortunately, when we're thinking about negative things about things that haven't already happened, it starts to produce worries and stress and reactions in us that then affect our emotions, behavior, and cognition. So I see that a lot and that's again what a lot of people call worry. When we worry so much about things that we haven't even taken some time and sift through, or we haven't gotten to, that, and then part of that also is that we don't prepare ahead. And I'm going to talk about that when we start talking about some of the ways to be able to handle stress. We worry so much, but we don't prepare for those things as needed. So then it's likely to start producing stress for us.
Absolutely. Ooh, you hit a huge one on the head when you talked about perceived stress.
Yep.
Oh my goodness. And you know what? That truly goes hand in hand with negative thinking.
Yes, definitely.
My goodness. As my mentor often says, people, we make up stories.
Oh, yes.
We make up stories about how it's going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
And whatever it is may not have even happened yet.
Definitely.
This is so funny because I'd had a bill and I was thinking, oh my goodness, this and this is going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
And all they wanted, I needed to make a phone call. And I was like, oh my goodness, this is before I'm well now.
Mm-hmm.
But before, and I was talking to my mentor and he's like, you made up a story.
Yes.
You don't even know what they're going to say.
And it's so interesting because if we do the opposite in terms of positive thinking, and what I mean by that, in terms of really making plans and looking at what the real fact is, man, there's so much that's going to happen, but we spend so much on the negative and then coming up, like you said, with all these stories that then really feeds into the stress, the myopic thinking, the beliefs that we create about our lives and how it's supposed to go. Yeah, it's a big thing.
Yes. And if you're watching this Hangout right now, I want you to go over to the feed and I want you to type in hashtag stop making up stories.
Yes.
Because it is truly anticipating the negative. It's perceiving stress. And you know what? I did call about that bill.
Mm-hmm.
And all they wanted to do was verify my insurance and that the bill had been paid.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I went through all of this unnecessary, undue stress.
Yes.
It was how I was reacting to a situation that wasn't even stressful. It wasn't even, it was my reaction to what I perceived. And oftentimes we make that mistake. I was so guilty of doing so much more of that. I'm getting so much better at it now.
Mm-hmm.
It's just the way we handle and tackle things. So I want to move on, and I want to talk about one of my questions for you.
Mm-hmm.
Just kind of talk to us a little bit about how stress can spill over into other areas of our life. We often, like you said, it's the reaction, but talk to us a little bit about how it affects different areas of our lives.
Mm-hmm. Well, one thing for sure is when we think about our lives, my life is my life. There's no, putting in compartments different aspects of my life. It is all together. One thing that happens in one area affects every other part of it, especially if we don't take control of how things are happening in our lives. So when one area is stressed, definitely every other part is going to be stressed in one way or the other. And the same way as I always look at the way that things affect us. It affects cognitively, what we're thinking, how we're thinking things, then which then ties into how we're feeling about things, and then ties into the actions that we take in terms of our behaviors. So a lot of times when something is happening in one area, for example, we talked about bills, when I wake up in the morning and in my head is stuff about bills, especially when there are things that are not very good. Definitely the more I think about it, the more it is producing certain feelings in me, and possibly, panic attacks and, a lot of worrying. And it's likely going to spill out in terms of how I'm talking to people, how I'm communicating to people, how, in fact, sometimes, when we're thinking about one thing that is worrying us so much, we think we're hearing people say, everything we hear from people sounds like it's about the negative part of what we're thinking about. Think about it. A lot of times you find yourself snipping at people. It seems like if somebody looked at you and said something, oh, they must be saying something bad about me today. You start snapping at the kids, the spouse and people around you. When you have to do your work, you notice that your mind is at the bill, and, all the bad things that are going to happen about it. And then, I can't think of the last time I was thinking about something that was that stressful. For some of us, our systems shut down. It's hard to eat, or do anything else. And for some of us, we go straight to the fridge and keep eating everything. So it affects our health. For some of us, it affects our spirituality, and so many other ways. But again, it's like a body of water. When you throw a stone in one area and it causes that ripple, definitely having stress in our lives, especially when it becomes to take over a lot of things in our lives. Now, stress is not such a bad thing, and I'm going to talk about this a little later. But it's more about what it becomes in our lives and how we allow it to take control, and it becomes like this cocoon that we go into. Then it's definitely going to take over every other aspect of our lives, including our relationships with others and even with ourselves. So definitely, there's so many different ways that if stress becomes a big part of our lives, it will. Ask anybody. You can definitely give me at least 10 examples of when one thing is stressing you, you find yourself reacting differently in every other aspect of your life.
That's so true, Dr. Okoro. And I'd like for somebody to just put in the feed. When one area of our life is stressed, all areas are affected. Because I think that we don't often think about that. We talk about, we may be stressed and, oh, I have a headache, and it's a stress headache. You've heard people say that, but you may be feeling it in your head, but it's really affecting other areas of your body. Mm-hmm. It's just affecting other areas negatively.
Definitely.
So I think that is really, really an important point that you brought out, because oftentimes we don't realize that how we're reacting to things over and over and over again. And sometimes, like you said, we don't even know what the problem is. We can't even identify, or we haven't even taken the time to identify what it is that the problem is and how we're reacting to it. Mm-hmm. And that is just so very, very important. So I want you to talk about now that we've identified, how things, those kinds of things and what it affects, and that it truly is how we react to things. Let's get to some of the remedies. Let's get to some of the things that are here those things that you have that can rescue us from this kind of behavior, and we can begin to mend and heal and get better at how we handle stress. I'd like you to talk about some of the techniques that can be done on a regular basis that relieve stress. And I just want you to take your time and kind of walk us through them slowly, and so that we could truly get what you're saying and implement these things in our lives.
Definitely. I think first and foremost, first thing we need to do is be able to believe and let ourselves accept the fact that we can handle stress. A little bit of stress is good, because I know that when I have that heat in me to go, when I have a deadline coming up, when I have stuff to be taken care of, it puts that oomph in me to go, to be more prepared, to work a little harder, to add extra time. So yeah, those little things happening, or being able to have a little bit of stress is good in our lives. I'm going to talk about personal thermometer, which is one of the things I've been working with a lot of people on just a little bit later. But there's 4 areas I want to go over first in terms of what we need to be able to do. And then I will go over some of the specific techniques that First of all, whatever I talk about doesn't have to be exactly like that. Again, when I see people, I like to modify everything that I do for that specific person. So please take whatever you can take out of this, of these things I'm going to talk about, and really mold it into your own life, what fits for you, how it works for you. But you have to be honest with yourself in terms of the things that are stressful. First and foremost, the first area I like to talk about it is in terms of identifying and recognizing what are stressful in our lives. Because stress is different for everybody. There's some people that might have deadlines and have bills piled up, and it's not stressful for them. It's like a 1 on the thermometer, while for some of us it's a 6, and for other people it's a 10, which is the thermometer blowing up. So, but you need to really take time and identify the things that are causing stress for you. And that means, what are the things that you are responding in ways that are sometimes negative, sometimes some symptoms that you have physically. I mean, I've had some people, they are so stressed they're throwing up. So what are some of the things that you respond to physically? Or you look at the phone and somebody is calling you, and as soon as you see their name, your heart starts to beat faster. Or you think of something and you sweat more, you start feeling sick. But again, you need to be able to understand how you physically, emotionally, and behaviorally respond to certain things that are happening in your lives. And being able to be aware of that, then you can go into there's a second level that is part of that, which is being able to really understand which ones are okay to be in your life. I mean, there are certain things we can't escape because, they're natural part of our life, our journey. So when you already recognize the causes of symptoms in your life, when you are already been able to kind of figure all those things out, then you can go into managing them. So, and then accepting that some things will be happening in your lives. Whether I like it or not, I am going to be able to have bills all the time. I would love not to have bills, but it will be there. Whether I like it or not, there's always going to be traffic. And sometimes and this has happened to me a lot, because sometimes I travel and I have to drive to go to other cities and states. And I can leave home, I can say, oh, I'm going to add another hour or 2 hours to the time because I know there might be traffic, and I will still be late because I'm stuck in traffic. And, I have to accept it. I mean, I've had that happen sometimes, and I look at my clock, I'm like, I am so not going to make it there in time. Now, I can sit in traffic and want to think in my head, I wish I can drive over all these cars, and it only happens in movies, Or I can turn up a nice, great music and relax while I'm, in the flow of traffic. If I need to make phone calls, if I need to let people know that I'm coming late, then definitely I will do that. And I've done that several times. But most of the time, I need to do something else to take care of myself while I'm in traffic because I can't control traffic. So again, we need to be able to figure out what are some of the things that are happening, and can we be able to get ourselves not to feel stressed about those, especially if you cannot change those situations. And I'm going to talk about again how you can take care of those things. But first and foremost, we need to be able to accept that there are going to be things in our lives that we're not going to like. People, situations, whatever, but we have to be able to be accepting of that. And then, by doing that, then we can have a little bit better attitude and outlook about those specific things. Because if we don't go through that part where we have to accept that those things are going to be in our lives, then we're going to constantly be stressing about it. And it's still going to be there. So, and then the third part of it is, what are the resources we have in our lives? Okay, so I already know what those things are that are causing stress in my life. I'm already accepting that some of them are going to be there. Sometimes there are people, family members, and as such, and situations, job, or whatever, that we have to accept in terms of them being in our lives. And then we try to have a positive or neutral attitude in terms of how those things are in our lives. Then the third part, like I said, is putting together the resources that we need to be able to cope with those situations. And and I'm gonna again talk a little bit about that a little bit later in terms of some of the ways that we can do that. But that's the third level. And then the final part of it is actually doing something about it, putting it into action. Communication, like I said, I'm in traffic. I already realized that whether I like it or not, I'm going to be late somewhere. Instead of stressing about it, I have to accept that I may have to pull over and make phone calls to let them know I'm going to be there 5, 10, 20 minutes later. And then, figure out, maybe while I'm doing that, I can figure out, are there alternative routes for me to get there? But again, you notice how that's going to make my blood, my blood pressure be a little bit lower versus if I'm sitting in traffic, screaming, yelling, cursing, doing all those fun stuff we like to do in traffic, especially when we can't change traffic, that is causing us to react physically, emotionally, otherwise, through that. So again, those are the different areas. Now, in terms of specific things we can do, there are several different ones, but I'm going to go quickly on the ones that really generalize in so many different ways. First of all, breathe. Whether we like it or not, like I said, certain things are happening. Sometimes we find ourselves in the middle of something happening that are stressful.
I love that one.
Stop and breathe. The world, I always say two things. If two things are going to happen out of that, then I really need to worry. If the world is going to end and if I'm going to die, okay, then I really have to stress. Stress becomes my best friend at that moment. But if those two things are not going to happen at that very moment, I need to stop and really go back to me, because what is very important right now is taking care of me. So I need to stop and take care of the situation with me. This is where I bring in my personal thermometer. Now, personal thermometer, you can use it in so many different ways, but it has to do with our emotions. No matter what emotion, especially the ones, that we consider to be negative. But I always say between 1 and 3 is telling me that, okay, things are happening. In fact, that's where my good stress is. I need to take care of situation. I need to be able to be on fire and get things done.
Yes.
Me is and take care of it, especially as it's getting closer to 6. That means I need to take care of that situation at that moment. Again, while I'm taking care of it, I need to be able to breathe. I need to calm myself down, because if I calm myself down, this fun part of the brain, the frontal lobe, will be able to make better decisions. Will be able to help me a little bit more, because the CEO of the brain, that's where we think a lot more. There's a lot happening in the brain, but at least that part, when we are calmer, we can be able to now look at so many other solutions, look at things a little bit better. Remember, when we are very stressed, when we are hyperventilating and having all this emotion happening, think about it. We're not thinking straight at that moment. So when I calm myself down, breathe, take myself out of the situation if possible, and then take time to take care of me, then I can sit down and try to figure out what are my resources and what are different ways I can take care of situations. So again, take care of you at that very moment. Stop, see what can be taken care of, especially if I'm reaching 6. Now, if I am beyond 6 to 10 is the highest. If I notice that I'm passing 6, that means I need to step away from everything. Because trust me, at that time, you're yelling at people, you're throwing things, you're doing, you're yelling at the car, or whatever else. But that's the moment you walk away from situation and focus on calming yourself down. Again, self-care. You have to take care of you. There's nobody else at that moment in terms of, or any other body. First foremost, you have to take care of you. So if you're passing 6, that means a lot is happening in terms of your brain, and this is not working very well at that moment. That's when, in relationships, when we're yelling at each other at that time, emotions high, later we think about it and go, oh, maybe I shouldn't have said what I said the last when we were yelling. This is not working very well at that time, So again, step away, take time. I always talk to couples about, having the code word about, okay, time out, let's walk away, breathe, do whatever we have to do to calm ourselves down, take care of ourselves, and then come back and take care of the situation. So again, that is very, very important to be able to do, to stop and really take care of you first. So you don't want to get to 10. And trust me, I've known some people, I think maybe once or twice I've gotten to 10, but 10 is just really losing it. And we don't want to get there because it's not really about the situation anymore. It's about a lot of destructive and toxic things happening to us at that moment. So you got to stop and take care of you. And then the situation will still be there. You take care of that situation. So, what are some of the things that we do when we start finding ourselves kind of getting there where we're very, very stressed, where we have things to take care of? First and foremost, if it's possible, start planning things. I mean, yes, I love being spontaneous, and spontaneity is very good for life. It's the spice of life. But there's a lot of things. First of all, if you're aware of the things that causes stress in your life, it's time you start scheduling those things. So if I know ahead of time, we're already in August, but at the end of July, I can sit down and plan out all the things that are happening this month, especially those things that are more stress, that tend to bring those stressful things in our lives. Plan it out, because if you're able to plan it out, it may even start with just sitting down and thinking about it. What am I doing next week? What am I doing the week after? If I can sit down, make lists, prioritize things, I can be able to handle it a little better. I can be able to say, okay, what are the resources I have? What are the resources I need to get? What are the things I need to delegate? What are the things I need to take out of my life? Because I know how it affects me. But we need to be able to sit down and do that. Now, this also applies to people in our lives, because there are some people that just with our relationship with them is very, very toxic. So maybe another time I'll really get into that part about stress in terms of people. But in general, in terms of kind of looking at things that are stressors in our lives, plan ahead of time, even if you're not going in details, but at least knowing how things are going, so that at the end of that, now if I plan my week, at the end of the week I look and then I can sit down and go, okay, what were the things I was able to accomplish? Great, good job for accomplishing all that. What are the things I wasn't able to accomplish, and what are the reasons? And then I can figure out what they are, and then I can plan the following week, and then maybe I can prioritize some of the things I didn't accomplish this week and put it there. Now, if I don't do it that way, for a lot of us, it becomes overwhelming. Isn't that a word that we use a lot? Overwhelming, frustrating, So those things you find in your life that you call overwhelming, frustrating, piling up, you seriously need to start thinking about them and planning them out. Right now, it may be way too many, but by sitting down and listing them all out, again, that's part of the identifying the stressors in our lives. What are the things that are causing it? Recognizing how it affects us. Then we can be able to really figure out how important they are in our lives. That's another part of it. Because sometimes by really looking at it, we may even figure out that there are certain things that really don't need to be there, that don't need to be part of our routine, that may be very stressful in our lives that we may not need to be dealing with. So again, making plans is very important. I'm one of those people. I work really well under pressure. If I tell you so many things I've written, as a student, I did really, really well in writing stuff. And please don't tell my professors when I wrote them. But one of the things I realized that if I'm writing the night before or 2 nights before or whatever, which is when my brain opens up and everything is pouring out, but then that means I'm going to be awake for 2 nights writing that. What do I tend to do? When I realized that was becoming stressful for me, I started planning ahead of time. Now, my brain sometimes will shut down and we get that writer's block a week or 2 or a month when the work was given. But I may start planning out, such as collecting all the materials I need, putting things the way I need them, because if it takes the last 2 days for me to be more active, for my brain to be firing like crazy and writing, I don't need to be collecting the materials and doing every other thing that last 2 days. That's where I stress. But if I plan ahead of time and get everything I need set up, so that last part that I actually really needed those 2 days to be more effective, then it is not going to be very stressful for me. Then I know that, okay, I just need those 2 days to be able to put together the rest of the work. Versus if I started that 2 days, okay, that's where it becomes procrastination and stressful for me. So again, planning is very, very important. I know that we have so much going on in our lives, but by planning, we're able to really recognize how far apart we're supposed to take care of things, break them down into pieces, into manageable pieces in our lives, being able to, like I said, delegate, get all the resources we need, because sometimes we may think we have it all in us or in our home, and then the last minute you realize you don't have what you need, and then it becomes stressful. But if we know ahead of time, then we can plan and work towards that. And then also the next part is, I always tell people, you need to take one time a week to do assessment on yourself. Again, this is about self-care. At the end of the week, take some time not only to take care of you emotionally, mentally, I'm sorry, we should not be taking better care of our cars than we take care of ourselves. If I'm not taking care of me, everything will be stressful to me.
Ooh,
if I'm not getting sleep, if I'm not getting sleep, if I'm not eating well, if I'm running around like a chicken without a head, everything is going to be stressful to me. So taking care of me, and really, I look at it. If I'm taking care of my car every 3 months, special care, I'm washing it every week, I better be taking care of me even better. So at least once a week, it may be more than that, but once a week, take time out. I know some of us have children. We have other things that are that makes it kind of, it seems that we can't get time for ourselves. But at least for me personally, for me to be a better wife, a better mother, a better everything else for everybody else, I have to be a better me to me, which means I have to take time and take care of myself. So at the end of the week, I take time and really, from head to toe, check myself, including my emotions. How did I feel this week? What happened? What are some of the things I took care of? What are some of the things I'm running behind on? Just take some time, and especially how I'm feeling. How did I feel this week? Did I have a lot of times this week that I got moments of joy, that I took time and be more appreciative of me and about things I've done, about people around me? Really take time and enjoy my life. How often was that compared to the times that I didn't feel good? It may be, stress, it may be illness, it may be other things. I really like to look at that. So I take time and go over everything I did for the week, but also especially to see how I did in terms of taking care of myself. I may kind of grade myself on that. I don't want to be the one going to the doctors for them to take some time and grade at me. And by the way, my internists love to, yell at me when I don't take care of me. So I don't want that. So I need to be able to do that for myself first. And then also by doing that, then I can set goal for myself for the following week. So if I notice that I didn't have as much moments of joy, or I have more moments of distress and lack of sleep, and trust me, I've had times where I go, a few days with less sleep than I needed, maybe because I couldn't control situations at that time. But also that lets me know, okay, you need to take some time now and really distress and take care of me, and take care of my mental health, my emotional health, my spiritual health, my financial health, every aspect of my life. And I prioritize those depending on what's going on. But taking time and really taking care of me is very, very important. And we got to do that. We got to, especially us women. Wow. So much that we do, and so much that we do for other people. Amazing. But we need to start learning how to take care of us. We need to start taking care of us and other women around us. I have a daughter, and she always comes and stands by the corner. She's very vocal. She's 3 years old, but she likes to watch me, and she likes to do certain things that I'm doing. And I have to remind myself that this little girl is watching me, and even my son, they are watching me and learning how to take care of themselves through what I'm doing. So it's not just what I tell them, they're vicariously learning from me. So I have to also teach them how to take care of themselves, how to speak, how to love themselves and have better self-esteem. And if I'm not doing that for me, they are going to be learning it from everybody else. And sometimes it's not good what they learn out there. So again, it starts with how we take care of ourselves. Deep breathing, very important. I always like, especially when you breathe, I tell people a lot of times when you're sitting down, just focusing on your body and really taking time to relax your body and breathe. A lot of other things are not in your head at that time, Also, I like to tell people, and I have a tape coming out at the end of this month about really the messages we allow to filter into our lives, and how it really makes our world very, very myopic. And we hear so much, there's so much messages that are coming in, including a lot that are very stressful for us. There's so many of them we need to tune out. tune out, because some of them we can't control because of the things that we have around us. So it may be what I can control is tune out how much is getting to me, and then also feeding myself with positive messages. Whether you like it or not, that's actually one of the ways to be able to manage those stress that are in your life. Just take time and feed your mind, your spirit, your emotions, everything about you. You got to take some time and feed that and find the right things. I tell people, take some time and recognize the things that your senses are attracted to, but positive and negative. The negatives you need to take out, but positive. There's so many things. I'm one of those people. I pay a lot of attention. In fact, sometimes I notice when I like citrus, like lemon. When I find myself sniffing lemon rinds a lot, I realize, oh, I am stressing a little, because that tells me I really need that at that moment. So I pay attention to my senses, the things that my sight, smell, sense of smell, my skin, all those kinds of areas in my senses are attuned to, the music, all those kinds of things. So when it's time for me to rest and distress, I actually take time and bring in all those areas and put them together. And it is wow in terms of how it helps being able to get all those things. And it's different for everybody. But if you can get different things that really feed those senses of yours, you will be amazed at how much that really helps your blood pressure, your joy, your spirit, everything about your brain. Get it all together. Now, sometimes I need to expel energy, like the martial artist that I am. I like to either punch my punching bag or go for a run, get a lot of this energy, out of me, and then be able to feed it in on the ones that are really good. So again, I like to have good imageries in my head when I'm relaxing, when I'm taking time to really feed myself and take care of myself. So I know I went on and on and on, but I hope that kind of makes sense in the different areas. But as you can see, a lot of things I talked about, you can do that every single day. I mean, I've gotten to a place now where I actually naturally deep breathe without even thinking about it, because it's become part of, sometimes I'm talking to people, I'm like, okay, at this before I say the next word, I find myself just, okay, 2 seconds, I need to breathe, because and also when I'm doing that, my brain is working, because at that moment I'm thinking about the next thing to say that still tells exactly what I need to get out, but in a way that is healthy for me and makes it easy for people to really understand what I'm saying. So
absolutely. Oh my gosh, that is incredible information. And you probably saw my head down. I was taking notes. My pen just couldn't go fast enough. You was just sharing so many valuable pieces of information. Often, I mean, how many times do we really think about scheduling the things that we know are going to give us the blues later on down the line? Like you said, enrolling kids, doing all, enrolling yourself, things at work. If there's things that you have every week to do, like you said, just begin to think about those things, and, just the early moments of processing those things rather than getting to the moment, in the moment, and having to deal with them.
Definitely. Definitely. And it's amazing. People don't know how much strength and resources they actually have within them, because we're so stressed half the time that, we're right in the middle of things happening that we are lost at that moment. But if you take time, you will be amazed at the things that you have that you didn't even think about before, but you're doing this when you're calm, when you're, when everything is working great in your brain, and you can be able to come up with those. And even the things that may seem like they're not going right, just to be able to think about it and go, but I made it through the last one, but I took care of that situation. Now, if we're in the middle of stress and yelling and screaming and whatever, we won't be able to think about all that. But if I settle down and kind of go, okay, I'm able to kind of really see that I've made it through even worse, and ideas will be popping into my head. Like you said, you were talking about earlier about going, hey, I just need to make a phone call. You'll be surprised how many times even picking up the phone and just making a phone call. I always go, what's the worst that can happen? The worst that can happen is they say no, or they, then I can figure out other ways to take care of that. But pick up the phone. But if we are so stressed and in the middle of it, and and it's just going on, it's hard to think about all those solutions. It's hard to think about the things that from within we can actually handle and not handle. But if I'm stressed, at that moment, for a lot of us, we feel weak. We feel like we can't do it. A lot of negative messages we've been hearing since we were kids start popping up like crazy and starts to affect us a lot. And then we find ourselves at lost or too stressed to even handle the situations we need to handle.
Absolutely. My goodness, this has been great information. You know, Doctor, this has really been a great help because I can just see and identify as you're talking areas in my life that I can do better in managing the things in my life that I may find stressful. I was thinking not too long ago about something that, and you're right, it's those things oftentimes that are in our childhood. And one of the most recent true healings that I just had was building a different relationship with money.
Mm-hmm.
There was a time in my life where just the thought of having a conversation about money was a stress. It brought on all those feelings that you just identified. The heart, the nervousness, and then it blocks your channel and to be able to think of solutions and those kinds of things. And it stemmed from my childhood, my early recollection and relationships with money. And the things that I knew was that there was never enough. There was always some stress associated with money. Mm-hmm. There was always some feeling that was associated with money. So I had to identify those things. I so can relate to what you're talking about.
Yes.
And then when I went back, and then I had to recreate my mindset and how I thought about money, and understanding that it is a tool. You don't center things around money. It's a means to an end. It's something that is a tool. And suddenly my fears, when I began to look at it differently, all those things that were stressful began to just dissipate.
Definitely.
And I no longer have those issues. So I never even dreamed that I could even change that I had the power to change it. Mm-hmm. And it's so empowering when you begin to handle those things in your life that you have associated with negative feelings and reacted negatively to. And a lot of times it's a learned behavior, I realize.
Definitely. And it's interesting how those things, things that are stressors in our lives end up defining us, instead of them just being, I see it as our life is a journey. And a lot of these are just the road that we are walking on. It doesn't have to be part of who we are. It doesn't even have to be who we are. There's this story they tell, and they have pictures of it, where the donkey fell into the hole, and they tried everything to get it out. They couldn't, so they said, well, let's just bury it alive. So they started pouring sand over it, but then they realized what was happening. Each time they're putting it on, and instead of that weighing him down and the donkey and covering it, he kept stepping over on top of it, on top of it, on top of it, until he came out. So why can't we do that with a lot of all these things that we're dealing with? Instead of letting them weigh us down, and I'm not saying that we're not going to have things we're going to react to, and that's part of being human. There's a lot of things I still react to and respond to. But again, what do we learn from that? How do we step on it, and keep going and going and going until we're able to get to where we need to be, versus letting it keep burying us and burying until we're dead, pretty much in every way. So again, we got to be able to take care of us and make sure that our stresses, the things that are not good for us, end up defining who we are, our journey, who the world see, even though that is not us at all. But we can't let those become, what defines us.
Absolutely. Boy, I tell you, this has been a powerful hour. Powerful hour. Doctor, I want you to just take a moment There were a couple of things you mentioned, but I want you to take a moment and tell the viewers, those that are going to view this video in the future, how they can get a hold of you, how they can reach out to you or work with you. Can you share that information with us?
Yes, definitely. One of the best ways to reach me, I have my website. I'm on Facebook, so you can actually look for me on Facebook, especially Up Care Health, which is one of my organizations. Also, the other one is Integral Life Health and Trauma Institute. It's both on Facebook, and I have websites for it. I also have, you can email me very easily. You can find me on Google. On Google Hangout. And in fact, I'm actually going to be starting something similar to this, but I'm hoping it will be, for right now, it will start maybe at the end of this month or next month, where I will be discussing different areas of our lives, and just giving pointers and also answering some of your questions. That's actually one big part of it, is I want to be getting questions about what are the things you would like to hear more of. So, but follow me on Twitter at Dr. Blessing Okoro, DrBlessingOkoro. A lot of information will be coming out on that in terms of some of the things that I will be doing. I have an audio tape coming out at the end of this month, and it is really great. It came out of a seminar that I do a lot. It's called Redefining Cinderella Syndrome. And we use the story of Cinderella to really talk about the self-limiting beliefs that we have and how that ends up defining us, but how to break through that. So I have that audio tape coming out at the end of this month. So definitely, if you're on Twitter with me, I will be able to give information on that very soon. So yeah, those are the different ways that you can be able to reach me.
Wonderful. Well, I want to take a moment and tell you thank you again. This has been incredible. We will be in touch. I will be staying in touch because they're just, I'm sure there's a way that we can collaborate and partner together. I'd love to be able to reach out and do something with you, because you just have an incredible work that you're doing. And I just really appreciate you being so very, you didn't talk above our heads. You gave us very practical right now things, and that's what is so important to me. I want to be able to give the viewers and the listeners a remedy. We can talk about the problem all day long, but without a solution, we're just talking.
Definitely.
And you've given right now things that we can do. I'm going to implement some of these tonight because I can identify, as much work as I've done and had this transformation and gone through this coaching, there's always something that we can do to improve our situations. And I've identified some of those things right now that I can put in place. And I'm hoping that those that will watch this Hangout, whether it be now, and that's the beauty of Hangouts and Google, this video will be available on my YouTube channel, be able to watch. You're going to help you. This will be the gift that keeps on giving, because you shared some really, these are life-changing solutions. And so I really want to thank you for that.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yes, I've so enjoyed this hour. And so to my listeners out there, I hope that you've enjoyed Dr. Okoro. Really is. I thank you for watching, viewing, and look for my next Hangout. They're always on Tuesdays at 7 p.m. Central Standard Time. And Dr. Blessing, is there one more thing that you'd like to say before we sign off?
Just, take better care of yourselves. You're the only person that you have. And, if you take care of you, a lot of things around you will be taken care of. Your children, your life, your work, your relationship, your love life. A lot of things will be taken care of, but you have to be number one. You have to take care of your body, your spirit, your brain, everything about you. It is very important, and make it a priority. Thank you.
Absolutely. Well, I want to tell you out there, thank you so much. And I'm sure as you've listened, there's some places and things in your life that you've identified that you can do better at. And that's the goal here. With I Am Enough, I want you to understand that you're always enough. I'm enough, and so are you. Have a good night. Thank you.